The order from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission mandating financial institutions, especially banks, to make available their asset declaration forms is still generating reactions. This directive from the EFCC takes effect from the 1st of June as part of measures meant to ensure that the country is free of financial crimes. Joining me in the studio is in-house analyst Obani Akinwale, and on Skype from Benin is Executive Director, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, David Ugolo. Gentlemen, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thanks for having me.
All right, David, let me start with you. In trying to curb financial crimes, which has become some sort of a menace in the country, the government has put in many measures to address this. But coming up with this now, is this really the way to go?
Again, thank you very much. Yes, I think very well. Yes, this is the way to go. This is an existing law. It was not just designed today. It has been there. And EFCC, what has happened is that the current EFCC chairman, who have just assumed office, decided to put it as a priority of his tenure. And for us, it's a welcome development because for civil society, the only better way to tackle corruption, particularly against the background that Nigeria has now been seen as a very corrupt country because of the corruption perception index and the high level of money laundering in the country. And the banks plays a major role. And so this law, effective implementation of this law will help address the issue of money laundering. It will help address the question of lack of transparency in the national financial system, and it will again help to the federal government massive campaign on asset recovery, because once any of the bank officials is caught in the act, they will certainly retrieve their asset, and that becomes forfeited to the federal government. And for us, that is the only way to send a strong message to those who are working in the bank to be clean.
Sending a strong message to those in the bank to be clean. Obani Akinwale, I wonder if that is how you see this move by the EFCC.
I wish my humble brother, Dr. Kwashalu, is here to help me translate this proverb to English. There is this proverb that says, that the government fails to attack leprosy. They are trying to kill a plant that was suspected to be likely source. Sometimes I'm amazed by what we come up in terms of the efficacy and the efficiency of our law. The law is there. So why do government want to start chasing bankers when we know who and who is responsible for the crime that happens in this part of the world? Now, making reference to the case of James Ibori, Justice Awokuleyin said in the recent judgment, when we asked him how he felt about some case of EFCC, he said his conscience is clear because Nigerian law asks for burden of proof is on whoever alleges, but the UK law talks about inference. So you ask yourself, burden of proof is on who? Who steals this money? Then again, are we saying the fact that somebody is a banker is not eligible to do other form of businesses? Are we saying the channel of looting is supposed to be blocked or even the source? So the question is that, are we not aware where this money is coming from? We all know the largest enterprise in this part of the world is government. So government pump money into state government, to local government. This money have wings and fly away. And bankers can always claim that outside the outright bank, working in a respective bank, they are investors. So for you to say somebody should declare his asset, let's say for example, I'm an engineer here. So do I bring that in outside TVC? Obviously, yes. So what it means is that their layer time, what they used to invest with it, you're asking them how to go about it. Then, before we even start that, let's ask for ourselves. Let's EFCC put themselves in the mirror. What kind of government agency drives SUVs? What is the salary of EFCC? What is the emolument attached to each office in EFCC?
So they should apply this law to themselves.
If you are asking a banker to declare his asset to not live beyond his means, What are our political appointees, the number of aides, the number of personnel, the number of luxuries they move around? Are they not supposed also to go by the Code of Conduct Bureau of Public Officers? Have we also looked at that? Have we looked at what are the what is happening within the government agencies and how they are thriving while chasing the bank?
That brings me to my next question, which has to do with how successful, because this is an existing law, right? And it was meant for political class. How successful has it been when it comes up to issues of politicians declaring their assets, those holding certain political positions, which this was saddled with initially? How far have we come with achieving so much results with using this same law that has been in existence? How far have we come? Yeah,
we are making reference to case of his distinguished Senator Bukola Saraki on the case of his property on Ikoyi Road. When the EFCC was probing that case, it was established that those properties were bought with credit from bank facilities. The bank that borrowed that facility has collapsed. Then the EFCC do not look at, okay, if this one was bought with loan facilities from banks, how did the SP sustain it? Now, how many of the government officials that have been taken to CCB has come out clean? And is it the bankers that are putting the money there? So you ask yourself, as a professional banker, are you entitled to advise those that hold the cash where to put their money? Are you entitled to your own share? I'm not absolving them of corruption. What I'm saying is that what has CCB done in terms of conduct of public office holders?
Right.
What has ICPC done in terms of identifying the loophole and blocking the loophole? We are not blocking the loophole, we are blocking the channel. Whether you like it or not, the system is a multi-channel. Take for example, there's cryptocurrency now. So which means I can buy a cryptocurrency, I can sell a cryptocurrency, and nobody knows the whereabouts. And again, the era of Ghana must go. You could remember during the era of President Obasanjo thought and bid that Ghana must go was fine here and there. So people don't need to even take money to bank again. Even nonetheless, look at the policy of bank whereby the rich, the poorest are subsidized. I mean, the richer are subsidized by the poorer, whereby you take 6 naira, you take 50 naira, which will make people to continue to store their money at home. And when you put on these laws are there. The question is that, what are the precursors to this law? Have we been effectively able to manage them? Before EFCC could be able to manage the properties, the worth of every bankers, let us start from the chairman of the EFCC himself. What is he entitled to as the chairman? What is the law stating what public office holders are entitled to? Then, instead of us changing the industry that's already collapsing, because what you don't know is that a lot of people, a lot of investors in the banking system, because things like this set panic into motion. We know where the problems are. Our government officials, we know how much was allocated for them monthly. Have we gone to ask them for accountability of how this money was spent? So coming out and say bankers.
Invariably, what you are saying is this is not an effective way to address
what has been effective in this country. We have the law, but they have never been effective. There's the people that implement them, implement the other side of the law.
Let's get David Ugolo's reaction to perhaps what you have just pointed out. David, perhaps you want to react to Obani's statements.
First, again, I want to thank my friend in the house. I can understand his concern. I think this is a legitimate concern. Everybody is concerned that why is the law not well implemented in the country. But that is not an excuse why decisions should not be taken. Like I said, the decision why this has become a topical issue in the country is that, as you recall, there's been a change of leadership in EFCC.
Absolutely.
And the current EFCC chairman have decided that for him to be effective in the work of a war against corruption in Nigeria, there are certain things he needs to do. And one of them is to ensure that the existing law are implemented. And it's starting from the bank. Now, you cannot question that decision. And you don't expect him to say that, look, I must get everybody in the country to start implementing all the law at the same time. He has started with this. And the only thing that I think my friend should be questioning is that what the action he has taken and what he has decided, is it legal? Is it within the constitutional framework? If it is legal and it is within the constitutional framework, we shouldn't have any problem with it. And as a matter of fact, what he has also said about the issue of the role of CCB is right. But you can't do all at the same time. Everybody has got his responsibility. Now, what EFCC have decided to do with the Bank Employee Act of 1986 is legitimate, it's constitutional. So within the provision of the Constitution, the EFCC is acting. And so therefore, Nigerians should rise up to support it. And as a matter of fact, it's in the large interest of the bank Because if the Nigerian financial system is not clean, investors will not come to the country to invest in the bank, and the bank will not be robust enough to compete with the others in the other world. We are now in globalization. You cannot just be a small bank again. You need to look beyond your shore. And to do that, perception is very important. And like I said, the current perception about Nigerian financial system is not very good. If you take, for example, the corruption perception index, Nigeria is not performing very well. If you take the Basel anti-money laundering index, where countries around the world are categorized in accordance with the implementation of FATF. FATF is the Financial Action Task Force framework, which all the global world try to hook up to in their global financial standards. Nigeria is also not performing very well. And if you look at the World Governance Index, Nigeria is also not performing very well. All this put together is painting a very bad picture about the national financial system of the country. And as if that is not enough, the current financial system, because it is not transparent enough, is feeding into the conflict and crisis in the country. You cannot disconnect what is happening in the Northeast from the poor financial system. But if you monitor, and if the financial system is very clean, you will be able to know how money moves from the south to the east and from the east to the west. And in that way, you know those who are involved in it. So this decision for EFCC to say, look, let's know who have what. It has nothing to do with a banker who has a legitimate income. All you need to do, and that's why I need to refer my friend to the execution of the declaration form. The form is very explicit in the law, in the act. All you need to do is to disclose all your legitimate source of income. And the law is very clear. You can only be found guilty if the asset that is found with you is not commensurate with the asset you have declared in the form. And I don't see any reason why anybody should have any problem with that. And even in London, in America, there are different laws that put the tools in the hands of the law enforcement agency to be able
I think the challenge here for him is the effectiveness of whatever measures being put in place. I mean, because he mentioned the fact that people always come up with different means. When these laws come up once in a while, people come up with different means to perhaps boycott the laws. Don't you think?
No. I think that's another issue entirely. Like I said, the current EFCC chairman said, look, there is a law that is existing, and I want to move to make sure that it's effectively being implemented. Why will you question that? Let's give him a time. Let's give him a chance. So let's give him a chance. And if there is any way to improve on the performance, on how he could improve in implementation, we could raise those issues. So for me, I think that Nigerians should rise up to support, and even the banking industry in the country should rise up to support, to see that EFCC play a major role. And EFCC alone cannot do it. NFIU need to also come out with the support for this move. Because if you don't clean the financial system, there's no way you can tackle the issue of poverty. There's no way you can tackle the issue of conflict. We are all victims of the conflict that is ongoing in the country. We are talking about bandits. We are talking about crisis in the north part of the country. The driver for all this is the lack of financial system. And there is a correlation between a countries where the financial system is not clean and then a prevalence of conflicts. And I'm not sure my friend in the studio is happy with the situation we have found ourselves in the country. Money that is supposed to be going to the development sector is currently being put into the military defense because we want to curtail and reduce the bandit actions in the country. So our support for EFCC from the civil society is on the basis of the fact that if this law is effectively implemented, experience and lesson drawn from it can be extended to other side. Even the politically exposed persons that he also make mention of, they are not exempted from this. All the sectors are inclusive, even within the civil society as well, even the religious group as well. What we are saying is that there should be a process where EFCC and ICPC can begin to gather evidence to embark on prosecution. For instance, if this is successful, it will become very easy for EFCC prosecutor to go to court, to take any banker that is colluding with a politically exposed person to move money out of the country. Because the problem of illicit financial flow out of the country is a huge problem for the country. Money that is supposed to be going for educational sector. You are seeing the state of our health system in the country now. What is responsible for that is because the politically exposed persons in connivance with the bankers, because if you see all the number of cases, either any of the governors that have been stealing money in the country, they cannot do it without the cooperation of the bank.
Right.
The bank is complicit. And it is not all bank. It's good for us to know the banks that are doing well, the bankers that are performing within the ethical framework, and the ones that are not doing well. And the only way to incentivize the ones that are doing well is to ensure that there is a cost for embarking on a culture of impunity.
All right, let's bring the conversation to the studio now, because I'm sure Obani would like to react to what you have said, especially with regards to cooperation from the banks with the EFCC to really addressing these issues.
Yeah, let me first put it out there that no sane Nigeria will justify any act of crime, especially when it comes to financial crime, which we know that is the foundation of all the issues we have in this country, be it security or what have you. But nonetheless, let's face the facts. In this country, most time we like chasing the shadow. He mentioned now that the bankers should be able to declare their source of wealth, should be able to declare what they have, their source of income. It's good that he mentioned the word banker, but I would like him to also, as a civil society person and as advocate of fairness and a very clean system, that what is the population of number of casualized bank workers? What is the ratio at which these contract staff in bank are turned over every 2 years? How many banks can put their hand in their chest that 40% of their employees are their permanent staff? So you have all of these agencies employ people for bank. You recall the issue that happens one of the big stores, one of the big telecos, the bankers that people go into that casualization by NLC and what have you. So how do you say the bank will tell you that employee so is not our staff? The employee so was contracted to us by this firm. So naturally those banks are not answerable for such employees because they are third-party employees. Now, these are the bankers that want them to declare their asset. And that was why I'm saying that why chasing the channels when we know the source? So what you have done more is to ensure that in order for banks to be less liable for this crime, you get more casualization in the banking system. That is one. Two, I will still refer to the case of Onanife James Ibori, where it was claimed that an amount of money was moved out. But the court in Nigeria, based on Nigerian law, say there is no evidence to actually shows that the proof by the EFCC, Rotimi Jacobs, was not enough to substantiate that Ibori actually withdrew that money. And the same year, the AG in 2007 or thereabout, the Attorney General of Delta State said EFCC is just an interloper, that they did not complain to EFCC, they are only harassing Ibori. So what I'm saying is, banker is not our problem. The money that is going to the bank is coming from where?
Somewhere. So we should...
The money that is being laundered, the source is the problem. It's not about the law. The law is there. And don't also forget that Nigeria is a very kind of funny situation. A banker can go and challenge in the court of law and says, bankers, and at the point in time that I am not a staff of so bank and I'm an employee of so, and as such, I have declared my assets, my information to my original employee. So these are issues that the civil society needs to look at, rather than putting the cart before the horse, or putting the horse before or the cart. They need to do the right thing. So the EFCC coming out with EFCC Act of 1986 is very laudable. Let's ask ourselves, is this the amount of criminal offenses that has to do with money laundering, financial crime that we have? Then again, it shows that our agencies are carrying titles without doing anything. If we have Nigeria Financial, FIU, we have it. We have the police that are tracking money. We have EFCC. We have CBN. We have NDIC. And yet we have this illicit flow out of the country. Look at the case of the guy in Dubai that was arrested, Monfa and Oshpopi. Are they bankers? Has FBI been able to trace the money that we will find on them to any of the bank or any of the banker? So these are things that we need to look at. Some of our laws, yes, they are there, but are they adequate enough to provide for the current situation? When you have a staff that is not employed by a bank, is the bank supposed to be responsible for such employee? So when you say bankers, who are these bankers? So those are the issues that we need to look at. Then again, the money the bankers are moving, or they are ceasing to launder, or they are culpable or whatever, where are this money coming from? Is CBN not aware of this deposit? But nonetheless, kudos to the EFCC chairman for reminding us that there was a law. But I also remember that he's not a first timer in the EFCC, and it was one time zonal whatever in Lagos before it was moved to PHC. So what you ask yourself is that from 2004, when it was recruited by Ribadu till today, was that no law in place? So instead of us jumping to media to catch headlines to look at where we are working, let us do our work the way we're supposed to do it. I'm not supposed to go on TV and say, for this thing to work, this camera has to be this way. That is not my job. My job is to make sure that people are able to see you. Let EFCC do their job without making noise. The law is there in 1986. Is the law going to be effective and applicable as at what we have in 2020, 2021? These are the questions we need to ask.
Tackling the issues from
from the source, not going to newspaper and say you are telling which banker. I have a lot of my colleagues that work in the banking sector. They are all casualized. After 2 years, they renew their contract. After 2 years, they said them they should go. And you ask that these are the people that you want to go and ask to declare the asset when they already have group or workforce or what have you, employing them to get the job done. We need to look at this holistically. And I keep saying it. Bankers are not our problem. Politicians, civil servants are a problem, because the entire money that flow in this country flow within the government. That is the truth. And that's why whenever government refuses to spend, our economy shrinks. Our economy suffers. But whatever they do, end power, 7,000 payment, and they inject money to the economy blooms. So what we need to do is that from going to local government, state, and what have you, how are these funds being managed? Are they doing what they're supposed to do? Exactly. That is the source of our problem. Not chasing shadow when there is none. Banker is not the problem. Is banker the justices that are carrying foreign dollars in their homes? Is the banker people lodging billions of dollars in their houses? Are those bankers? So even few of us now, because of this excessive charge from banking, very soon we'll be putting our money in our various homes. So when you come to my house and I said, why am I storing cash at home? You say you arrest me for moving cash around, when the bank has turned to reaping the poor to make the rich richer. So these are issues we need to deal with, not the issue of chasing bankers, that program that's getting 45,000 naira a month and looking for another source of income to do. Put proper framework in terms of who is employing the banking system. How does the banking system work before we now start chasing original bankers? But as we have now, 60% of our banking staff in Nigeria are casualized workers, and yet it will be inhuman for those people that are trying to look for me, and you still put them through this sort of pain.
That's the question I'll be turning over to David Ugola now. With the number of casualized workers, how do we make this framework or this system work effectively, especially blocking the loopholes that might come up that he has mentioned at the end of the day, to make this move an effective one?
Okay, with very due respect to my friend in the house, I can understand and the sympathy he has for the bankers. I also share their pains. As an advocate of human rights, it's my responsibility to continue to support, to ensure that we do not encourage banks to exploit Nigerians. Those casual workers are Nigerians. So we have always campaigned to ensure that human dignity, and as a matter of fact, it is the duty of Nigerians to ensure that banks who continue to dehumanize Nigerians are not patronized. Having said that, the issue we are discussing has nothing to do with commercialization of worker. There are two different issues.
Absolutely, but he is saying that because they are not full staffers.
You asked me to expand.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with commercialization of worker. This is a law. The bank, what I expect from my friend in the house is to say that, is this law legitimate? Is it legal? Is it within Nigerian constitutional provision? If he agrees that it's legal, then is it a duty for EFCC? Is EFCC rule to ensure that this is implemented and become effective? It raises the question of effectiveness. And I'm sure that the decision of EFCC to now stand up to ensure that the law is implemented, that's part of the process of effectiveness.
Absolutely.
Then the issue of consolidation, as I mentioned earlier on, it has nothing to do with what we are discussing now. But to go deeper, now, once the chief executive officer has responsibility, he has responsibility that the chief executive of every bank shall twice in every year, but not later than 7th of January or 7th of July, as the case may be, submit to the appropriate authority a list of all employees who joined or left the employment of the bank in the immediately preceding 6 months, expiring respectively on the 31st December of the previous year or 30th June of that year, respectively. Now, the question is that the chief executive is within this law, has responsibility to act in that wise. So whether banks are cashless, that's not the duty of EFCC. So that is what we are talking about. And how do we use this law to ensure that we tackle the problem of illicit financial flow? Now, in the value chain of corruption in Nigeria, there are different areas that EFCC, ICPC, even the National Assembly, different agencies of government can tackle. Now, in the value chain of corruption, EFCC have decided to say, look, I can act through here. Because when the money is flowing, it's in a circle. The money flows. Because what is the attempt by those who are involved in money laundering? What is the attempt by those who are politically exposed, who are governors, who are politicians, moving money around? They move the money through financial system. And what they try to do is that wherever the source they take the money from, they try to clean the money. That's what money laundering means. They take it from where, so that people don't think that the money is from a dirty source. And who helps them to clean this money? If my friend is familiar to the literature around money laundering, you will understand that the bankers plays a major role. So this law comes handily for the EFCC to tackle the challenge of money laundering in the country. So my appeal to my friend is to give benefit of that to EFCC new chairman and see how he act in the next 6 months. And perhaps when we return back, we'll be able to say that has he performed well, has he been able to carry it out, as he respect the human rights of the bankers, because he hasn't got anything to do.
David Ugolo, we have to leave the conversation here now because we've run out of time. We can, like you have rightly pointed, give the EFCC chairman the benefit of the doubt to see how far this new law goes to addressing issues of illicit flows of finances. But thank you so much, David Ugolo. That is Executive Director, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, for your time on the program, as well as in-house analyst Obani Akinwale. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.